Hello everyone, it is Laura Brazil of Mind Over Muscle here with your movement tip to turn on your lateral hips and build strength in the lateral hips. We've been working on our series of waking up our underused parts during our gait cycle, our walking pattern, and so this is just the next in that series. So go back and check out that waking up the hips. You can check all the videos out by clicking the link for the playlist below. So let's get started. Last movement tip, we rolled out, we did a gentle movement for the hips to wake them up. So you can start there if you want to, but if you're ready for strength in the lateral hips, let's get started. We're going to do a pelvic list today. And if you've worked with me, if you've talked to me about walking, I've probably brought up the pelvic list. And so here's our list. So we're going to go into one foot, and I want you to notice how you go onto one foot. How's your balance here? And do that, and then switch sides. How's your balance? What most of us don't realize is that our lateral hips are really important for balance. And so if you were going on the one foot and needed to bend your knee, or send your leg out to the side, or lift it up to the front, it's likely you're using more of the front of the leg and not using the side of your leg. So what I'm going to have you do now is try and get one foot off the floor by shifting your weight, but we keep the non-standing leg straight. And in order to do that, we have to engage the side of the hips. So I'm engaging here, and if you notice, if I put my fingers on my pelvis, as I shift and engage the lateral hip, the side that I'm engaging here on the stance leg, that side of my pelvis gets lower. So I'm using my muscles here, and they're shortening, and as they shorten, they pull this side of my pelvis down. All right. Let's go to the other side. I'll show that again. And on this, I'm doing it without a wall, but it's completely normal to need to use a chair or a wall for balance as you begin working on this strengthening move for the lateral hip. So we're going to shift our weight to our second side, engage the lateral hip. Sometimes it can help to put the hand there, and you're just trying to pull that stance side of the pelvis down as you go. So you can do this, if it's completely new to you, you can just kind of do it and hold and try to engage the side of the hip. I find putting my hand on the side that I'm trying to work, that stance leg, can help remind me to use the side of my hip. Or you can do it for repetitions. And again, you can put your hand on the wall. I've got my hand on the wall here. And really think about shortening the muscles here and then lengthening. So just as a review, as you shift your weight and then shorten the muscles on the side of your hip, you are building the strength here in your balance muscles. So let's take a break from that, and I'm going to show you, so this is very applicable to walking. We're up and down, and we're making it easier for our leg to swing forward without having to bend the knee on the opposite side, which is really important to put less stress on the knees when you're walking. But if this still feels like I don't know what's happening, I can't feel anything in the side of my hips, we're going to turn on our Jane Fonda a little bit here and go down to the floor for some sideline leg raises. So I like to come down to the ground, and you can use the edge of a mat or rug to make sure that you're standing in this horizontal position, that you're upright, if you will, in your horizontal position, so that this applies more directly to your walking pattern. So what I'm going to have you do is lift the leg up and lower it down. Now, because we're horizontal now instead of vertical, this doesn't apply as well to our walking pattern, but instead of having to carry the weight of our whole body, as it is when we're standing, we're now just having to carry the weight of the leg, and legs can be pretty heavy. So and it's completely against the line of gravity here, it's a little bit different feeling. So we're lifting and trying to use the lateral hip. If you notice here, if you look at the line where my shirt meets my pants, that line doesn't move. Now, what most people will do when they first start a leg raise, they'll go like this. Do you see how my line on my shirt moved and my waist is cinching here? This is a lot of spine and waist work here, but less hip. So you're not gonna get as high without that movement, but that's okay. My hip is burning right now. It's really working hard. So switch sides. Try that on the other side. And you're lifting. You're not going for height. You're going for using the lateral hip and taking the spine out of this motion. So for a lot of people I work with, a lot of my students will start this, and when I say, don't move your pelvis essentially, none of this moving of the line of the shirt, no spinal movement, the motion becomes very, very small and really concentrated right where we want it in the lateral hip. All right, so you probably are feeling that lateral hip now, but this whole series, I've wanted you to connect with what it feels like to use these underused parts in better hip alignment, right? That first foundational video on hip alignment was the beginning of this series on the underused parts of the upper legs and hips. So we're gonna go back to the first leg, give that second side a little bit of a break, and we're going to get our hip in better biomechanical neutral position here. So what I want you to do, remember those knee pits, they keep coming up. I'm going to have you get your knee pit pointed straight back behind you. So for me, I know I need to externally rotate my hip in order to get my knee pits facing that wall behind me. So my foot's gonna point up in the air a little bit, and now I'm gonna do those same leg raises. Use a pillow under your head if you need to. You can do this on a bed too, it doesn't have to be on the floor. But now, because my hip is in a more biomechanically aligned position, I'm working different area of my lateral hip. I can feel it in different spots. It's a lot harder for me here. Notice I'm not getting as high. My body's used to working there from my current, where my hip currently wants to reside. All right, let's take a break, switch sides. And then after we do this side, we will go back up to that pelvic list. All right, so get your knee pit pointed straight back to for me, it's the wall behind me. I need to externally rotate a little bit in order to make that happen. And then I'm gonna lift using the lateral hips. Oh, and notice again, this line where my shirt meets my pants, it is not moving because I'm just using the hip muscles, not my waist and my spine. So this, if you find yourself moving it all through the abdomen or your pelvis is moving, slow down and really pay attention to how this is feeling here. All right. We're now going to bring better hip alignment up to our pelvic list. So if you weren't feeling the pelvic list before, you'll probably feel it now because you've woken up the side of the hips. We're building strength in the lateral hips here. And you can do one of two things here to get your hips more neutral and your knee pits pointed back behind you. The first one is do what you have to do. We want to keep our feet flat on the floor here, toes straight ahead. And so I have a neutral foot. I'm going to get as neutral. I have to externally rotate to get my knee pit more straight back behind me. And for this, I'm going to go to the wall because I know in a more neutral hip position, I need a little help with my balance. All right, so only your knee pits might not face directly back behind you now because we don't want to compromise the forward toe position, the neutral foot. So now we're shifting our weight, engaging in a more neutral hip position. It's not perfect. We're not aiming for perfect here in that hip position. We're just looking for better. Better is better. not perfection. All right, let's try the other side. Toes straight ahead, externally rotate at the hip or for me it's external rotation. You might need to internally rotate, but do whatever you have to do to get the knee pit pointed straight back, or straighter back, more back. And do a few on this side. Nice and slow. If you're having to go fast, it means that we're having to use momentum to make that motion instead of the strength. All right, the other way that you can do this is to let your feet go wherever they need to go. For me, I have to turn my feet out. You might have to turn your feet in a little bit to get your knee pits pointed straight back behind you. Again, check out the foundational alignment video in this series if you don't know what I'm talking about. And so now my feet are pretty turned out, but now my hip is in a little bit better alignment here with the knee pit pointed back. So I'm targeting different muscles and working on this here. So I'm accommodating my turnout here in this version. Again, you can always use the wall. All right, shake it out. That is a quick way that you can start building strength in the lateral hips. This area tends to be very underused for our walking pattern, and it's so important to build strength there and to learn how to use those muscles for your gait pattern.